Hey everyone, before I tell you this story, I need to know, where are you watching from right now? Drop your city or state in the comments. And are you team family comes first or team trusts no one? Because after what happened to me, I honestly don't know anymore. Okay, so let me take you back to 3 months ago. My sister Amanda was getting married to Brandon, this perfect guy with perfect hair and a perfect job at some tech company. Everything about their wedding was perfect, from the venue at this gorgeous winery in Napa Valley to the ice sculpture that probably cost more than my entire rent. Me? I'm Lily, 28 years old, barely scraping by as a freelance graphic designer in San Francisco, living in a studio apartment where my bed doubles as my couch, doubles as my dining table. While my sister was planning a $40,000 wedding, I was trying to figure out how to afford a decent gift without using 3 different credit cards. The contrast between us wasn't new. Amanda had always been the successful one, the one who made our mother proud, who bought her own condo at 25, who seemed to have life figured out. I was the artistic struggler, the one mom worried about, the one who needed to grow up and get a real job. But I loved my sister. Despite everything, despite the way mom always compared us, despite feeling like the family disappointment my entire life, I loved Amanda. So when she asked me to be her maid of honor, I said yes, even though I knew it would drain my already pathetic bank account. The wedding day was beautiful. October in wine country, golden light, crisp air, vineyard views for miles. Amanda looked stunning in her dress, and Brandon couldn't stop smiling. I stood beside her at the altar in a bridesmaid dress that cost $300 I didn't have, holding her bouquet while she said her vows. During the reception, I did what broke maids of honor do at expensive weddings. I ate as much free food as humanly possible and smiled through the pain of watching everyone else seem so effortlessly wealthy. Our mom, Charlotte, held court at the head table, beaming with pride over her successful daughter's perfect wedding. The photographer, this energetic woman named Beth, was everywhere, capturing every moment. She must have taken 1,000 photos that day. At one point, she gathered us for family portraits. Me, Amanda, Brandon, our mom, our Aunt Helen, and a few cousins. We smiled, we posed, we pretended we were all as close and happy as we looked. But here's the thing about photographs. They capture more than just the subjects. They capture background details, moments happening just outside the frame, little pieces of reality that no one notices until much later. After the wedding, I went back to my tiny apartment and my freelance hustle, trying to forget how inadequate I'd felt all day. Amanda and Brandon went on their honeymoon to Greece. Life returned to normal, or what passed for normal in my chaotic existence. Then, about 2 weeks after the wedding, Amanda texted me a link to the wedding photos. The photographer had uploaded them all to an online gallery, hundreds of pictures documenting every moment of that perfect day. I clicked through them late one night while eating ramen for dinner and trying to ignore my overdue electricity bill. There were beautiful shots of the ceremony, candid moments during cocktail hour, dancing photos from the reception, and then I came to the family portrait section. That's when I saw it. In one of the group shots, just over my Aunt Helen's left shoulder, there was a champagne bottle sitting on a nearby table. The label was partially visible, turned at an angle toward the camera, and on that label, written in silver Sharpie, were numbers 10, 17, 2001, 473. At first, I barely noticed it, just a random detail in the background. Maybe a guest had marked their bottle to keep track of it. Maybe it was part of the venue's inventory system. I almost scrolled past it without a second thought. But something made me zoom in on the photo. Something about those numbers nagged at me, pulled at a memory I couldn't quite grasp. I stared at them until my eyes hurt, trying to figure out why they felt important. 10, 17, 2001, 473. October 17th, 2001? My father's birthday. The father who'd supposedly abandoned us when I was 5, the father whose name we weren't allowed to mention in our house, the father who, according to my mother, had walked out on his family and never looked back. My heart started pounding. I zoomed in closer on the photo, squinting at those numbers. After the date, there were 3 more digits, 473. Was this just a coincidence? Some random date that happened to match my father's birthday? Or was this something else entirely? I couldn't sleep that night. I kept pulling up that photo on my phone, staring at those numbers until they burned into my vision. 10, 17, 2001, 473. My father's birthday, and then 3 more numbers that meant what? Nothing? Everything. The thing is, I barely remembered my father. I was 5 when he left, old enough to have vague memories of a tall man with dark hair who used to lift me up to the ceiling and make airplane noises, but too young to understand why he left or where he went. My mother never wanted to talk about him. Anytime I asked about my dad as a kid, her face would go hard and cold, and she'd say the same thing. He made his choices, and we made ours. We're better off without him. Amanda, being 3 years older, remembered more than I did. She told me once that Dad used to work in finance, that he traveled a lot, that he and Mom fought constantly in those last few months. She said he just left one day while we were at school, packed a bag, and disappeared. No goodbye, no explanation, no child support, nothing. We struggled after he left. Mom had to go back to work as a paralegal, and money was always tight. We moved from our nice house to a small apartment, stopped taking vacations, learned to shop at thrift stores. I grew up thinking my father was a selfish man who'd chosen his freedom over his family. But now, staring at those numbers, I started wondering if maybe there was more to the story. The next morning, I did what any desperate person would do. I went down a research rabbit hole. I Googled my father's name, Thomas Whitfield. I found some old LinkedIn profiles, a few mentions in business articles from the late 90s, but nothing recent, nothing that explained where he'd gone or what had happened to him. Then I tried something else. I searched for obituaries. Because if he died, surely someone would have notified us, right? That's when I found it. Thomas Whitfield, age 34, died on October 17, 2001. Services held privately. In lieu of flowers, donations to the American Heart Association. My father hadn't abandoned us. He died on his own birthday, 23 years ago. And somehow, my mother had never told me. I felt like someone had punched me in the chest. All those years of thinking he'd chosen to leave, all that resentment and abandonment I'd carried, it was based on a lie. He hadn't left us. He died. But why would Mom lie about it? Why let us believe he abandoned us instead of telling us the truth? I called Amanda immediately, my hands shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. "Lily, it's 7 in the morning. What's wrong?" "Did you know Dad died?" The words came out strangled, desperate. Silence. Long, heavy silence. "Amanda, did you know?" "Who told you that?" Her voice had changed, gone careful and guarded. "I found his obituary, October 17th, 2001, the same date that was written on that champagne bottle in your wedding photo. Did you know?" More silence. Then, "Lily, this isn't a conversation to have over the phone. Can we meet for coffee?" "Just answer the question. Did you know Dad was dead?" I heard her take a breath. "Yes, I knew, but it's complicated, and..." I hung up. My hands were shaking. My whole body was shaking. My sister knew? She'd known all these years that our father was dead, and she'd never told me. She let me go on believing he abandoned us, believing he just didn't care enough to stay. I opened that wedding photo again and stared at those numbers. 10/17/2001, 473. Someone had written them on that bottle. Someone at the wedding had known the significance of that date. But who? And why? And what did the number 473 mean? I needed answers, but I also needed to calm down and think rationally. I made myself some coffee and sat at my tiny kitchen table, trying to piece things together. My father died on his 34th birthday, 23 years ago. I was 5. Amanda was 8. Old enough to remember, old enough to be told the truth, while I was apparently too young to handle it. But even if Mom wanted to protect me as a child, why keep lying? Why not tell me when I was older, when I could understand? Why maintain the fiction that he abandoned us? Unless there was something about his death that Mom didn't want me to know. I thought about that champagne bottle again. Someone had marked it specifically with Dad's death date, at Amanda's wedding. That meant someone there knew the significance, knew the secret. My Aunt Helen had been standing right next to that bottle in the photo. Could it have been her? She was Dad's sister, after all. She would have known the date. I grabbed my phone and pulled up the photo one more time, zooming in as far as I could. The bottle was definitely on the table where the family had been sitting. And now that I looked closer, I could see that the handwriting looked rushed, almost hidden, like someone had written those numbers quickly, secretly, wanting to leave a message without being too obvious about it. Someone at that wedding had left me a clue. Someone wanted me to find something. But what? 3 days after I found my father's obituary, I got a call from my Aunt Helen. We weren't close. She lived in Portland, and I maybe saw her once a year at family events. So when her name popped up on my phone, my stomach dropped. "Lily, it's about your grandmother, Sophia." Dad's mother. She'd had a stroke 6 months earlier and had been in a nursing facility ever since. I'd visited her once with Amanda, but she'd been mostly unresponsive, staring into space, barely recognizing us. "What's wrong?" "She's asking for you, just you. The doctors say she doesn't have much time and she's been quite agitated, saying your name over and over. Can you come?" I was on a bus to Portland within 2 hours. The nursing facility smelled like antiseptic and overcooked vegetables. Helen met me in the lobby and walked me to Grandmother Sophia's room. She looked so different from the sharp, elegant woman I remembered from childhood. Small and frail in the hospital bed, her once dark hair now completely white. But when I walked in, her eyes focused on me with an intensity that made me stop in my tracks. "Lily," her voice was raspy but clear. "Finally, I've been waiting." Helen started to follow me into the room, but Grandmother shook her head firmly. "Alone. I need to speak to her alone." My aunt looked worried, but nodded and left, closing the door behind her. I sat in the chair beside the bed, taking my grandmother's thin hand. "I'm here, Grandma. What did you want to tell me?" She gripped my hand with surprising strength. "I don't have much time, so listen carefully. Your father didn't abandon you. He died trying to protect you." My breath caught. "I know he died. I found his obituary. But what do you mean, protect me?" "Your mother, Charlotte, she's not a bad woman, but she's weak, easily influenced. After Thomas died, there were people, dangerous people, asking questions about his business. Your mother was scared. She made decisions, signed papers, took money to keep quiet and keep you safe." "I don't understand. What people? What business?" Grandmother's breathing was becoming labored. "Thomas worked in finance, but not the kind you put on a resume. He managed investments for very wealthy people, people who didn't want their money traced. When he had his heart attack, some of those clients thought he'd stolen from them. They threatened your mother, threatened you girls. My blood ran cold. Are we in danger? No, not anymore. But the price of that safety was silence. Your mother had to pretend Thomas had abandoned you, had to make it look like he left with nothing. She couldn't let anyone know about his accounts, his investments, his insurance policies. Everything had to disappear. But it didn't disappear, did it? I thought about those numbers. He left something behind. Grandmother's eyes filled with tears. He left everything for you, Lily. Your sister and mother, they know. They've known all along, but they took it, kept it from you. They thought you'd be too young to remember, too easy to control. What do you mean they took it? The wedding photo. Did you see it? Did you see the numbers? My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. You wrote those numbers, on the champagne bottle. She nodded weakly. I knew you'd notice. You always noticed details, even as a little girl. 10/17/2001, your father's birthday and death day, and 473, the number of the safe deposit box at First National Bank in San Francisco. The key is in my jewelry box at Helen's house, third drawer, hidden in the lining. What's in the box? Everything. Account numbers, property deeds, insurance policies. Thomas set it up so that on your 25th birthday, everything would transfer to you. But your mother convinced the bank there had been a mistake, that you'd signed documents giving up your rights. Forgeries, all of it. They've been living off your inheritance for years, while you struggled. I felt like I couldn't breathe. How much money are we talking about? Last I checked, before my stroke, the accounts were worth about $8 million, plus the properties, a house in Seattle, a condo in Miami, some commercial real estate. Your father was brilliant with money, and he made sure his baby girl would be taken care of. But your mother and sister, they betrayed you. $8 million. While I've been eating ramen and choosing between paying rent or electricity, my family had been living off my inheritance. Amanda's condo, her perfect life, her $40,000 wedding, all of it funded by money that was supposed to be mine. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Why wait until now? Tears rolled down grandmother's wrinkled cheeks. I tried, baby, but Charlotte threatened to cut me off from seeing you girls if I said anything. After my stroke, I couldn't speak, couldn't write. But at the wedding, I had one good day, one moment of clarity. I grabbed that marker and wrote those numbers where I knew you'd see them eventually. I prayed you'd figure it out before it was too late. Does Mom know I told her? No one knows. And Lily, I gripped her hand harder. Be careful. There's more to this than money. In that safe deposit box, you'll find documents about your father's death. It wasn't just a heart attack. Someone made sure he died, and those same people might not be happy if the truth comes out. Before I could ask more questions, her eyes fluttered closed, and her grip loosened. Monitors started beeping, and nurses rushed in. I stepped back as they worked on her, my mind reeling. My father was murdered. My family stole my inheritance, and somewhere in a safe deposit box was the proof I needed to expose everything. The question was, what would I do with it? I left Portland the next morning. Grandmother Sophia had stabilized, but slipped into a coma. The doctor said it was only a matter of time now. Helen, seeing my devastated state, had hugged me goodbye and told me to call if I needed anything. She had no idea what her mother had just told me. The key was exactly where Grandmother said it would be. While Helen was at the hospital, I'd gone to her house and found it hidden in the lining of the jewelry box. A small brass key with 473 engraved on it and a bank logo I recognized. First National Bank, downtown San Francisco. I held that key all the way home on the bus, feeling its weight in my palm. This tiny piece of metal was the key to everything. To the truth about my father, to the money that should have been mine, to the lies my family had told for 23 years. But I didn't go to the bank right away. I needed to think, to plan. If what grandmother said was true, that my mother and sister had forged documents to steal my inheritance, then I couldn't just walk into that bank without protection. I needed evidence. I needed leverage. I called Nicole, my best friend since college, and conveniently, a lawyer specializing in estate law. "Lily, you sound weird. What's going on?" I told her everything. The wedding photo, the numbers, my grandmother's deathbed confession, the key. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, there was a long silence. "Holy hell," she finally said. "Lily, if this is true, we're talking about major fraud, identity theft, forgery, embezzlement. Your mother and sister could go to prison." "I know." My voice was small. "But I need to know what's in that box first. Will you come with me to the bank?" "Absolutely, but we need to document everything. Film the opening, take pictures, make copies immediately. If this goes to court, chain of custody will be crucial." We met at the bank the next day. First National was one of those old downtown buildings with marble floors and high ceilings, the kind of bank that screamed old money and discretion. Nicole had her phone ready to record as we approached the safe deposit box area. A bank manager, Michael Chen, greeted us professionally. "How can I help you today?" "I have a key to a safe deposit box." I held it up. "Number 473. I believe it belonged to my father, Thomas Whitfield." His expression changed immediately, recognition and something that looked like concern. "Whitfield, I see. Can you provide identification and proof of access rights?" I handed over my driver's license, my father's death certificate, which I'd printed from the online records, and my own birth certificate showing I was his daughter. Michael studied the documents for a long time. Too long. Finally, he said, "I need to make a call. Please wait here." He disappeared into an office, and Nicole and I exchanged worried glances. "That's not normal," she whispered. 20 minutes later, Michael returned with another man, older, more senior, whose name tag read Senior Vice President. "Miss Monroe, I'm afraid there's been some confusion about this box. According to our records, you signed over your rights to its contents in 2015, designating your mother, Charlotte Monroe, as the sole accessor." "I never signed anything. I didn't even know this box existed 3 days ago." The senior VP looked uncomfortable. "We have documents with your signature." "Then they're forgeries. I want to see them." Nicole stepped forward. "I'm Miss Monroe's attorney. We're requesting immediate access to this box and copies of all documents related to it. If there's been fraud, this bank could be liable for facilitating it." That got their attention. The threat of a lawsuit always does. "Let me pull the files," the senior VP said, disappearing into the back. Michael looked at me with something like pity. "This is unusual. We take our security very seriously. If there has been fraud, we'll cooperate fully with any investigation." When the senior VP returned, he had a thick folder. Inside were documents with my signature on them, except it wasn't my signature. It was close, but not quite right. The way the L curved, the spacing of the letters, someone had practiced it, but not perfectly. "This is not my signature," I pointed to each document. "Look, compare it to my driver's license. The real signature is different." Nicole was recording everything, making sure we had evidence of the bank's files, the forged signatures, the dates. "We'll need copies of everything in this folder, and now we need to access box 473. They couldn't refuse. With Nicole's legal expertise and the obvious evidence of forgery, they had to give us access. We were led into the vault, a massive room lined with safety deposit boxes of various sizes. 473 was a large one, requiring both the key and the bank's master key to open. When Michael pulled out the long metal box and set it on the table in the privacy viewing room, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold Nicole's phone to record. "Take your time," Michael said quietly, then left us alone. Nicole and I looked at each other. This was it, the moment of truth. I lifted the lid. Inside were stacks of papers, folders, envelopes, and something else. Bundles of cash, neatly wrapped and stacked. Hundreds upon hundreds of $100 bills. "Oh my God," Nicole breathed. I picked up the first envelope. On it, in handwriting I didn't recognize but somehow knew was my father's, was written, "For Lily. Open on your 25th birthday. I'm sorry I won't be there to see the woman you become. I love you. Dad." I hadn't cried yet through all of this, but reading those words written by a father I barely remembered, a father who loved me enough to plan for my future even knowing he might not be there, I broke. Nicole put her arm around me while I sobbed, and when I finally pulled myself together, we started going through the contents of the box. The documents in that safe deposit box told a story I never could have imagined. My father wasn't just an investment banker, he'd been a financial genius who'd managed a portfolio worth over $15 million at the time of his death. But more than that, he'd been scared. The paper showed he'd known something was wrong, that he'd sensed danger in the months before he died. There were letters, dozens of them, each dated and sealed. One was addressed to my daughters, to be read together. Others were marked for specific birthdays, my 16th, my 18th, my 21st, my 25th. He'd written me a letter for every major milestone, never knowing if he'd be alive to see them. Nicole and I photographed everything. Bank account statements showing accounts in the Cayman Islands, Switzerland, and Ireland. Property deeds for the Seattle house and Miami condo grandmother mentioned, plus 2 others I didn't know about, a cabin in Montana and a brownstone in Brooklyn. Stock certificates, investment portfolios, insurance policies. The current value, according to the most recent statements from a trust management company, was just over $11 million. $11 million that should have been transferred to me on my 25th birthday 3 years ago. But the most damning documents were the ones showing what had happened instead. In 2015, when I turned 25, my mother had shown up at this bank with forged documents claiming I'd signed over my rights to her. The forgeries were good, close enough to pass a cursory inspection, but they weren't perfect. And more importantly, the notary stamps were fake. Nicole confirmed it immediately. "This is slam dunk fraud," she said, photographing the documents from every angle. "With these forgeries and the bank's records of when your mother accessed the box, we can prove she's been stealing from you for 8 years. But it got worse. There were withdrawal records. My mother had been taking money out monthly, not enough to drain the accounts, but enough to fund a very comfortable life. She'd bought a new house 5 years ago, a Mercedes. She paid for Amanda's wedding with my money. And Amanda had known. There were emails in the file, printed and saved, correspondence between Amanda and the trust management company, asking questions about distribution schedules, inquiring about whether I might find out, discussing strategies to keep me in the dark. My sister had actively helped steal my inheritance. But the documents that made my blood run cold were the ones about my father's death. Medical records, police reports, witness statements. My father died of a heart attack at his office, suddenly and without warning. He was 34, seemingly healthy, no history of heart problems. The official cause of death was listed as acute myocardial infarction, a massive heart attack. But there was a letter from a doctor, someone my father had apparently hired to review the autopsy report. The letter was dated 6 months after Dad's death and was marked confidential. In it, the doctor raised concerns about certain findings that were inconsistent with a natural heart attack, traces of a substance in the bloodstream that shouldn't have been there, anomalies in the heart tissue that suggested external intervention. The doctor stopped short of saying murder, but the implication was clear. Someone had killed my father and made it look natural. And clipped to that letter was a list of names. People my father had worked with, people he'd managed money for, people who might have wanted him dead. One name was highlighted in yellow, Victor Santos. That name meant nothing to me, but Nicole's face went pale when she saw it. Lily, Victor Santos is your mother's attorney. He's been her lawyer for 20 years. The pieces started clicking into place. My father dies under suspicious circumstances. His associate or client or whatever Victor Santos was becomes my mother's lawyer and helps her forge documents to steal my inheritance. My mother raises us believing Dad abandoned us, never mentioning the money, the properties, the fortune he'd left behind. And Amanda, old enough to remember more than I did, goes along with it, profits from it, uses my money to build her perfect life while I struggle. "We need to go to the police," Nicole said. "This is way beyond civil court. This is criminal." "Not yet." I was surprised by how calm my voice sounded. "I want them to know I know. I want to see their faces when they realize I found the truth." "Lily, that's not—" "I need to confront them. I need to hear them admit what they did. Can you give me that? Just give me one day before we go legal with this." Nicole looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. "One day. But I'm coming with you, and we're recording everything." We left the bank with copies of everything: documents, photos, recordings. The original box remained in the vault, secured with new paperwork listing me as the sole accessor. The bank, realizing they'd been part of facilitating fraud, was suddenly very eager to cooperate with anything we needed. As we walked out into the San Francisco sunshine, I felt different, stronger, like I'd been carrying a weight my whole life and had just now realized I could set it down. My phone buzzed. A text from Amanda. "Mom said you're asking questions about Dad. We need to talk. Come to dinner tomorrow night." I smiled grimly. Oh, we would definitely talk. Tomorrow night, my family would learn that their lies had finally caught up with them, and I was going to enjoy watching their perfect world crumble. The next evening, I stood outside my mother's house, the house she'd bought with my money, and took a deep breath. Nicole was in her car down the street, ready to call the police if needed. My phone was in my pocket, recording app already running. The house was in Mill Valley, a wealthy suburb across the Golden Gate Bridge. 3 bedrooms, updated kitchen, a view of the bay. I'd been here dozens of times for family dinners, birthday celebrations, holidays. I'd sat in that dining room feeling inadequate and poor, while my mother and sister lived in luxury that was supposed to be mine. Amanda answered the door, perfectly dressed as always, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Hey, Lil, Mom's in the kitchen. Come on in." I followed her inside, noticing details I'd never paid attention to before. The expensive art on the walls, the designer furniture, the wine fridge in the dining room stocked with bottles that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. All of it bought with my inheritance. Mom emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. She was 58, but looked younger, probably thanks to the facials and salon visits she could afford with stolen money. "Lily, I'm so glad you came. I made your favorite, lasagna." "We need to talk," I said, not bothering with pleasantries. Something flickered in Mom's eyes. Fear, maybe. "Of course, let's sit down. Amanda, pour the wine." We sat at the dining room table, the same table where we'd eaten countless meals, where I'd felt like the failure of the family while they thrived. Amanda poured 3 glasses of expensive red wine, her hands steady but her eyes avoiding mine. "So," Mom began, using her soothing voice, the one she'd always used when she wanted to manage my expectations or talk me out of something. "Amanda said you've been asking about your father." I found his obituary, October 17th, 2001, the date that was written on the champagne bottle at Amanda's wedding. They exchanged a look, quick, guilty, caught. Grandmother wrote those numbers. She wanted me to find them. She knew she didn't have much time left, so she left me a clue. And I followed it. Mom's face had gone pale. "Lily, sweetie, I can explain. Can you explain why you lied to me for 23 years? Why you told me my father abandoned us when really he died? Why you let me believe he didn't care about us?" "I was protecting you." Mom's voice rose, defensive. "You were so young. You wouldn't have understood." "Understood what? That he died? Children understand death, Mom. What I didn't understand was why my father didn't love me enough to stay. I spent my entire childhood thinking I wasn't good enough, that something was wrong with me. Do you have any idea what that did to me?" Amanda shifted uncomfortably. "Lily, it was more complicated than that. There were circumstances, dangers. Mom was trying to keep us safe." I turned to my sister, this woman I'd looked up to my whole life. "Did you know about the money?" "What money?" But her voice was too casual, too practiced. "The $11 million Dad left for me. The accounts, the properties, the investments, the safe deposit box that you and Mom have been stealing from for 8 years. The silence that followed was deafening. Mom's wine glass slipped from her hand, red wine spreading across the white tablecloth like blood. Amanda's perfect composure cracked, her face crumbling into something like panic. "You found it. How did you—" "The numbers. Safe deposit box 473 at First National Bank. I have the key. I've seen everything, Mom. The forged documents, the fake signatures, the withdrawal records. I know what you did." "Lily, please, let me explain." Mom was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. I was going to tell you. I just needed time." "Time? You've had 23 years. You've had every opportunity to tell me the truth. Instead, you forged my signature and stole my inheritance. You bought this house with my money. You paid for Amanda's wedding with my money. You lived like queens while I struggled to pay rent. We were going to give it back. We were just borrowing it. You were so young when you turned 25, so irresponsible. We thought if we managed it for a few more years—" "Managed it?" I laughed, a harsh sound. "Mean steal it. And irresponsible? I was irresponsible because I was broke, because I didn't have access to the millions of dollars my father left me. You kept me poor on purpose so you could justify stealing from me." "That's not—" Amanda tried. "Stop lying." I slammed my hands on the table. "I have proof. Bank records, emails, everything. I know about Victor Santos helping you forge documents. I know about the trust management company you've been working with. I have documentation of every withdrawal, every purchase, every lie." Mom was sobbing now, her whole body shaking. "Please, Lily, please. We can fix this. We'll transfer everything back to you. Just don't. Please don't go to the police." "Why shouldn't I? You committed fraud, forgery, identity theft. You stole millions of dollars from me. You should go to prison." "I'm your mother." She looked at me with desperate, pleading eyes. "We're family, and family is supposed to love each other, support each other, protect each other. But you didn't protect me. You betrayed me. You stole from me, and you let me struggle and suffer while you lived off my money. So tell me, Mom, what does family mean to you?" She had no answer. We sat in silence, the weight of everything hanging in the air between us. Mom was still crying, Amanda staring at her wine glass like it might hold answers. I was surprisingly calm, the anger that had fueled me through the drive here settling into something colder, more controlled. "I want the truth," I said quietly. "All of it. Why did you really do this?" Mom wiped her eyes, leaving mascara smears across her cheeks. She looked older suddenly, defeated. "You have to understand, Lily. When your father died, I was terrified, not just of losing him, but of what might happen next." "What do you mean?" She took a shaky breath. "Thomas worked with dangerous people, very wealthy, very powerful people who didn't want their financial activities traced. He managed offshore accounts, moved money through shell corporations, helped them hide assets. I didn't know the details. He kept me separate from that world, but I knew enough to be scared. Grandmother said people came asking questions after he died." Mom nodded. "Victor Santos was one of Thomas's clients. He came to me 2 days after the funeral, very polite, very concerned. He said that some of Thomas's other clients believed he'd stolen from them, that they wanted their money back. He said if I couldn't produce it, they might hurt us, hurt you girls." I felt a chill run down my spine. "So you gave them Dad's money?" "No, I gave them some of it, enough to satisfy them that Thomas hadn't stolen anything, that his records were accurate. But there was more, so much more, that Thomas had hidden away. The safe deposit box, the accounts, all of it. He'd set it up to be invisible unless you knew exactly where to look." "And Victor helped you hide it?" "He said it was the safest way. He said if Thomas's clients knew there was still money out there, they'd never stop looking for it. But if everyone believed Thomas died broke, abandoned his family with nothing, they'd move on. We'd be safe." "So you lied about him abandoning us to protect the money?" "To protect you." Mom's voice rose. "You were 5 years old, Lily. If those people had known about the inheritance, they might have come after you, tried to use you to access it. I made you invisible to them by making Thomas look like a deadbeat dad." I wanted to believe her. Part of me, the part that still loved my mother despite everything, wanted to accept this explanation. But something didn't add up. "Okay, fine. Let's say I buy that. Let's say you had to lie about Dad to keep us safe. But that doesn't explain why you kept lying after I turned 25. Those people, whoever they were, they're long gone by now. The danger is over. So why keep stealing from me?" Mom's eyes dropped. She had no answer. But Amanda did. "Because we got used to it," Amanda said quietly. "Because by the time you turned 25, we'd been living a certain way for so long that we didn't want to give it up." "Amanda," Mom started. "No, Mom, she deserves the truth." Amanda looked at me, and for the first time since I'd arrived, I saw genuine remorse in her eyes. "When I was 13, after Dad died and we moved to that crappy apartment, I promised myself I'd never be poor again. I worked so hard, straight A's, scholarships, internships. I built my career, bought my condo, made something of myself. And yeah, some of it was funded by the money Mom was taking from your inheritance. But I convinced myself I deserved it, because I worked for it." "With your money," I said flatly. "With your money," she agreed. "And I told myself it was okay because you didn't know about it existed. I told myself I'd pay you back someday, that I'd make it right. But the longer it went on, the harder it became to imagine telling you. How do you tell your sister you've been stealing from her for years? How do you admit that your whole life is built on fraud? You could have started with the truth. At any point in the last 8 years, you could have told me, but you didn't. You chose to keep lying, keep stealing, keep living off my money while I struggled." I know, and I'm sorry, Lily. I'm so, so sorry, Lily. There's no excuse for what we did. We were selfish and greedy, and we betrayed you. You have every right to hate us." "I don't hate you," and I was surprised to realize it was true. "I'm angry and hurt, and I probably won't trust either of you again for a very long time, But I don't hate you. You're my family, even if you're terrible at it. Mom reached across the table, trying to take my hand. I pulled away. Don't, I said. Don't touch me. Don't try to make this okay. Because it's not okay, and it won't be okay for a long time. What are you going to do? Mom asked, her voice small and scared. I thought about the documents sitting in Nicole's car, the evidence of fraud, of forgery, of years of theft. I thought about the police, about prosecutors, and my mother and sister in handcuffs. And I thought about my father, who loved me enough to plan for my future even knowing he might not be there, who hid away a fortune to give me options, to give me freedom. Would he want me to destroy what was left of our family to get justice? I don't know yet, I said honestly, but here's what's going to happen. You're going to transfer every single penny back to me, every account, every property, every investment, all of it, immediately. And you're going to cover the legal costs for fixing this mess. Of course, Mom said quickly, whatever you want. I'm not finished. You're also going to write out a full confession, everything you did, how you did it, why you did it, and you're going to have it notarized. Lily, that's, Amanda started. Insurance, because I don't trust you. If you ever try something like this again, if you ever lie to me or steal from me or manipulate me, I'm taking that confession straight to the district attorney. Understood? They both nodded. Good. Now tell me about Dad's death. Grandmother said it wasn't really a heart attack. Mom and Amanda exchanged another look, and I absolutely knew that there was more to this story than I'd heard yet. Your father didn't die of a natural heart attack, Mom said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. He was murdered. We've always known it, but we could never prove it. The word hung in the air like poison. Murdered. How? My voice didn't sound like my own. Mom stood up, walked to a cabinet in the living room, and pulled out a file folder I'd never seen before. She set it on the table between us, old, worn, full of papers and photographs. Thomas was brilliant with money, she began, but he was also ethical, sometimes dangerously so. 6 months before he died, he'd discovered that one of his biggest clients was using the accounts Thomas managed to fund something illegal. I don't know exactly what, he wouldn't tell me, said it was safer if I didn't know, but it was bad, really bad, and Thomas couldn't live with being part of it. She opened the folder, showing me papers covered in my father's handwriting, notes, calculations, copies of transactions. He'd been building a case, gathering evidence. He was planning to go to the authorities to turn in his client and testify, but someone found out. Who? I asked, even though I suspected I knew the answer. Victor Santos, Amanda said quietly. He wasn't just Dad's client, he was his partner. They'd started their investment firm together 10 years before Dad died. When Dad discovered what Victor was using the accounts for, he confronted him. Victor tried to convince him to keep quiet, offered him money, threatened him, but Dad wouldn't back down. Mom pulled out another document, an autopsy report with certain passages highlighted. 3 days before he died, your father met with a detective. He gave him copies of everything, told him about Victor, about the illegal activities. The detective told him to be careful, that people like Victor don't go quietly. Thomas said he'd be fine, that he had backups of all the evidence in multiple locations, that if anything happened to him, the truth would come out. But it didn't, did it? The detective died in a car accident 2 days after meeting with your father, and then Thomas had his heart attack. By the time anyone thought to look into it, the evidence Thomas had given the detective was gone, lost in the accident supposedly. And the backups? We never found them. Thomas had told me there were backups, but he never said where. After he died, I searched everywhere. Our house, his office, safety deposit boxes, nothing. Victor had people go through everything, making sure all evidence of his activities disappeared. I thought about the safe deposit box, about all those documents. Dad did leave backups. They were in box 473, along with the money. That's why he set it up to transfer to me on my 25th birthday. I'd be old enough to understand, old enough to do something about it. Mom's eyes widened. You mean? There are documents in that box that detail Victor's crimes, names, account numbers, transaction records, everything Dad collected before he died. Then Victor will come after you, Mom said, grabbing my arm. Lily, if he finds out you have that evidence, he already knows. The voice came from behind us, from the front door that we'd forgotten to lock. Victor Santos stood in the entrance to the dining room, and he wasn't alone. 2 large men in dark suits flanked him, their jackets bulging in ways that suggested they were armed. My hand went to my phone in my pocket, but one of the men shook his head slowly, his message clear. Don't even try. Charlotte, Victor said pleasantly, as if he hadn't just broken into her house. Amanda and little Lily, all grown up and causing trouble. I've been keeping an eye on First National Bank for 23 years, waiting for someone to access that box. Imagine my surprise when the alert came through yesterday. How did you... Mom started. How did I know about the box? Thomas told me, obviously, right before he died, trying to use it as leverage. I have evidence, he said. If anything happens to me, it'll all come out. But Thomas made one mistake. He told me where it was. He thought having the evidence in a bank would protect him, but all it did was give me a way to monitor it. Victor walked further into the room, casual, confident. I've been waiting for one of you to be smart enough to figure it out. Charlotte was too scared, Amanda too greedy and comfortable with the status quo. But you, Lily, you've got your father's stubborn streak, his sense of justice, his fatal flaw. What do you want? I managed to ask. The evidence, obviously. Everything in that box that pertains to me. Give it to me, and we can all go back to our nice, quiet lives. Refuse, and, well, accidents happen, even to whole families. I don't have it with me, but you know where it is, and you're going to get it for me. He pulled out a phone, showing me a photo. Nicole, my best friend, sitting in her car. One of Victor's men was visible in the reflection of her window. You have until midnight tomorrow to bring me everything in that box that mentions my name. If you don't, your friend gets hurt. If you go to the police, she gets hurt. If you do anything other than exactly what I'm telling you, she gets hurt. Understood? My heart was racing, my mind trying to find a way out, but with Nicole's life on the line, I had no choice. Understood, I whispered. Good girl. Same place your father died, his old office building, top floor. Midnight tomorrow. Come alone. He turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Lily, don't try to be a hero like your father. Look where it got him. And then they were gone, leaving us sitting in stunned silence. Mom was crying again, Amanda looked terrified, and I was trying to figure out how to save Nicole without getting all of us killed. But one thought kept circling in my mind. My father had died fighting these people. He'd stood up to them, refused to back down, tried to do the right thing, and I was my father's daughter. After Victor left, I called Nicole immediately. Lock your doors, don't go anywhere, they have people watching you. What? Lily, what's going on? I told her everything as quickly as I could. To her credit, she didn't panic. Lawyer training, probably. Okay, she said when I finished, so we have until midnight tomorrow to figure out how to get me safe and get this guy arrested. That's doable. Nicole, he killed my father. He's not going to let us just walk away from this. Which is why we need to be smart. Come to my place. We'll figure this out. I left my mother's house without saying goodbye. Mom and Amanda both tried to apologize again, to offer help, but I couldn't deal with them right now. I had bigger problems. At Nicole's apartment, we spread everything out on her dining table, all the photos and copies we'd made of the documents from the safe deposit box. The evidence against Victor was extensive: money laundering, fraud, connections to organized crime, and most damning, a paper trail suggesting he'd arranged my father's murder. This is enough to put him away for life. Nicole said, studying the documents. Multiple life sentences, actually. No wonder he's desperate to get it back. But if we give it to him, he destroys the evidence and gets away with everything, including my father's murder. And if we don't, he kills me. Nicole said it matter-of-factly, like we were discussing weather. So we need a third option. We spent the next 6 hours brainstorming, planning, discarding ideas. The problem was simple. We couldn't trust the police. Victor had proven he could make evidence disappear and arrange accidents. We couldn't just not show up. He'd hurt Nicole. And we couldn't give him what he wanted and hope he'd let us live. Around 2 in the morning, exhausted and running out of ideas, Nicole made coffee and we took a break. "Tell me about your dad," she said, sitting across from me. "Not the financial stuff, the real him." I realized I'd never really talked about my father. I had so few memories, and for so long I'd believed he'd abandoned us, I tried not to think about him at all. "I remember he used to read to me before bed," said Lily slowly, pulling up fragments of memory. "These old mystery books, Nancy Drew, Encyclopedia Brown. He'd do all the voices, make it dramatic, and he'd always stop before the solution and make me guess who did it and how." "He was teaching you to solve mysteries," Nicole said softly. "Yeah, he was." I felt tears building. I was so little, I didn't understand why he was gone. I didn't understand why he didn't love me enough to stay. But he did love you. Everything in that box proves it. He loved you enough to fight for what was right, even knowing it might cost him his life. He loved you enough to hide away evidence that would someday let you finish what he started. He loved you enough to leave you the tools you'd need. I looked at the documents spread across the table, and suddenly I understood. He left me more than just money. "What do you mean?" "The mystery books. He was teaching me to think like a detective, to solve puzzles. And these documents, they're not just evidence of Victor's crimes. They're a roadmap. Dad was showing me how to take Victor down." I started sorting through papers with new eyes, looking for patterns. There were names, dates, account numbers, but there was also something else, notes in my father's handwriting, questions he'd asked himself while investigating. And then I found it, a document that changed everything. It was a memo to himself, dated a week before he died. Insurance policy, recorded confession from VS, stored at BL's office, access code known to DM. "VS is Victor Santos," I said, my heart racing. "But who is BL in DM?" Nicole grabbed her laptop and started searching. If your dad left clues, they'd be people he trusted, people who might still be alive. After an hour of cross-referencing names in the documents with online searches, we found them. Bernard Lewis, who'd been my father's accountant, and Daniel Morrison, who'd worked with Dad at the investment firm. "Bernard died 8 years ago," Nicole reported, "but Morrison is still alive. He's retired, living in Sacramento. And if he has the access code to a recorded confession, we might have leverage," Nicole finished, "something to use against Victor." We called Daniel Morrison at 6 a.m., probably waking him up. I explained who I was, and there was a long silence on the other end of the line. "I wondered when someone would figure it out," he said finally. "Your father was a good man, Lily. What he did, trying to expose Victor, it took real courage. He left a note about a recorded confession. Do you know what he was talking about?" "I do. Thomas gave me a code, 6 numbers, and told me that if anything happened to him, I should use it to access a recording stored in Bernard Lewis's office safe. After Thomas died and then Bernard passed, I moved the recording. It's been sitting in my garage for the past 8 years. And the code? I'll tell you, but Lily, if you're going after Victor Santos, you need to be smart about it. He's dangerous." "I know. He killed my father." "Yes, he did, and he'll kill you too if you give him the chance, so don't give him the chance." Daniel gave me the code, a 6-digit number that turned out to be my birthday backwards. Of course, Dad had left the key for me all along. Nicole and I drove to Sacramento that morning to pick up the recording. It was on an old cassette tape, the kind nobody used anymore, but Nicole had a player in her car. When we played it, we heard Victor's voice, arrogant and confident, admitting to everything, the money laundering, the illegal activities, and at the end, almost casual, "If Thomas keeps pushing, I'll have to take care of him permanently. It's just business." We had him. Now we just needed to stay alive long enough to use it. With less than 12 hours until the midnight deadline, Nicole and I crafted a plan. It was risky, probably stupid, and had about a dozen ways it could go wrong, but it was the best we had. First, we made copies of everything, the documents, the recording, all of it. We sent copies to 3 different lawyers with instructions to release them to the FBI if anything happened to us. We uploaded everything to cloud storage with dead man switches. We made sure that if Victor killed us, the evidence would automatically go public. Then we reached out to someone we hoped we could trust, Gabriel Reeves, a private investigator who'd worked with my father years ago. His name was in some of the documents, and according to our research, he was retired but still in the Bay Area. When I called and explained the situation, his first response was, "Thomas Whitfield was your father? My God, I've been waiting 23 years for someone to come forward with evidence against Victor Santos." "You knew he was murdered?" "I suspected, but I could never prove it. Thomas hired me a few months before he died to investigate Victor. I found enough to know Victor was dirty, but nothing concrete enough to take to authorities. When Thomas died and the detective he was working with had that convenient accident, I knew Victor had gotten to them, but I had no evidence, no leverage, just suspicions." "Well, now we have evidence. We have a recording of Victor confessing to planning my father's murder, but he's got someone watching my friend Nicole, and he wants me to bring him all the documents tonight." "Let me guess. You're planning to trap him?" "Something like that." Gabriel was quiet for a moment. "I'm too old for this kind of thing, but for Thomas, I'm in. What do you need?" We spent the next several hours planning every detail. Gabriel brought in 2 trusted associates, former cops who'd become private security after retirement. We set up audio and video recording equipment. We contacted a federal prosecutor who'd been investigating Victor for years, but lacked evidence. We built a trap. The plan was simple in theory. I'd go to the meeting as instructed, but I wouldn't be alone. Gabriel and his team would be hidden, recording everything. We'd get Victor to confess on camera, to make threats, to incriminate himself. Then the FBI would move in. In practice, it was terrifying. As midnight approached, I drove to the office building where my father had died. It was downtown, an older building that had been mostly vacant for years. Victor owned it. Of course he did. He'd probably bought it to control the crime scene, to make sure no evidence of what he'd done to my father remained. The top floor was dark, except for one office at the end of the hall, Victor's old office, still furnished like it was 2001, like time had stopped the day my father died. Victor was waiting, sitting behind a desk with his 2 guards standing behind him. He smiled when I walked in, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Lily, right on time. Do you have what I asked for?" I held up a USB drive. "Everything. All the documents from the safe deposit box that mention you." "Smart girl. Bring it here." I walked forward slowly, my heart pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. The recording device in my jacket was running, the backup in my bag, the third one hidden in my boot. Gabriel was watching from across the street with a high-powered camera. FBI agents were positioned in unmarked cars below. Everything was in place. I just had to keep Victor talking long enough. "Before I give you this, I want to know why. Why did you kill my father?" Victor leaned back in his chair. "Is this the part where I monologue, where I explain my evil plan?" "I just want to understand. He was your partner, your friend." "He was a liability," Victor said simply. "Thomas had principles, ethics. He actually believed in right and wrong. That's a dangerous quality in our line of work." "Your line of work being what? Money laundering? Helping criminals hide their assets?" "Helping successful people protect their wealth. There's a difference." "Not when those people are funding terrorism and human trafficking," I shot back, remembering some of the transactions detailed in my father's documents. Victor's face saded. "Careful, Lily. You're in no position to judge. Your father knew exactly what kind of money he was managing. He chose to look the other way for years because it made him rich. He only grew a conscience when he thought he might get caught. That's not true. The documents show the documents show what Thomas wanted the world to see, a sanitized version of events that made him look like a hero. But the truth? Thomas Whitfield was just as dirty as I was. The only difference is, when things got hot, I adapted and he panicked. Is that why you killed him? Because he panicked? I didn't kill him. I had someone else do it. Competent people who made it look natural. Just like I'll have someone else take care of you if you don't hand over that drive and walk away. What about my friend, Nicole? If I give you this, you'll let her go? Oh, sweetie, I'm not holding your friend. She's probably at home right now wondering why you're not answering her calls. The photo I showed you was taken weeks ago by one of my security guys. I've had people watching all of Thomas's family for years, just in case. But I'm not stupid enough to actually kidnap someone. That brings too much heat. He'd been bluffing. The whole time he'd been bluffing, and I'd fallen for it. But that meant the plan could still work. So if I give you this drive, I can just walk away? You'll leave me and my family alone? Cross my heart, Victor said mockingly, unless you do something stupid like try to go to the authorities. But you won't, will you? Because you're smarter than your father. You know when to cut your losses. I walked up to his desk and set down the USB drive. He picked it up, examined it, then plugged it into his computer. His guards watched me carefully, hands near their jackets. While Victor was distracted verifying the files, I asked the question that had been burning in me since I'd found the truth. Do you feel any guilt at all about killing him, about destroying my family? Victor looked up from the computer, his eyes cold. Guilt is a luxury, Lily. In my world, you survive by making hard choices. Your father made the wrong choice. He chose principles over survival. And look where that got him. Dead at 34, leaving his family broke and vulnerable. Was that worth it? Was his conscience worth more than his life, his daughter's futures? Yes, I said quietly. It was, because he taught me that some things are worth fighting for, worth dying for. And thanks to him, I have everything I need to finish what he started. Victor's expression changed, understanding dawning. You did that. The lights came on. FBI agents poured in from the stairwell. Gabriel burst through the door with his camera. Victor's guards reached for their weapons, but they were immediately surrounded. Victor Santos, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, money laundering, fraud, and about 15 other charges. You have the right to silence. Victor looked at me with pure hatred. The drive has copies of everything on it, I confirmed. The real evidence is already with the FBI, the state attorney general, and about 3 different news organizations. You lose. As they led him away in handcuffs, one of the agents approached me. Ms. Monroe, we're going to need your full statement. This is going to be a long night. That's fine, I said, watching Victor disappear down the stairwell. I've got time. For the first time in my life, I've got all the time in the world. The next few weeks were a blur of legal proceedings, interviews, and media attention. Victor Santos's arrest made headlines. Financial executive arrested for 23-year-old murder, and Bay Area investment firm linked to international money laundering scheme. My father's name was cleared posthumously. The media painted him as a hero, the whistleblower who died trying to do the right thing. They were right, but it still hurt to watch strangers talk about him when I barely remembered him myself. The FBI recovered over $200 million in assets that Victor had been hiding for various criminal enterprises. Several of his clients were arrested. His investment firm was shut down. The case was expected to take years to fully prosecute, but the federal prosecutor assured me that Victor would spend the rest of his life in prison. As for my inheritance, it took 3 months to untangle the legal mess my mother and sister had created. Nicole handled most of it, working with a team of lawyers to transfer everything properly to my name. The final amount, after taxes and legal fees, was just over $9 million. $9 million. I couldn't even comprehend that much money. I'd spent my entire adult life struggling to afford groceries, and now I had millions in the bank. It felt surreal, like something that had happened to someone else. The first thing I did was pay Nicole her legal fees and then some. The second thing was set up a trust fund, not for me, but for other people who'd been affected by Victor's crimes. Families of his victims, whistleblowers who'd lost their jobs trying to expose corruption. My father died fighting for justice. I wanted his money to continue that fight. Then I bought myself a proper apartment. Not huge, not ostentatious, but mine. A place with a real bedroom and an office where I could work on my graphic design projects. A place that felt like home in a way my studio never had. My mother and Amanda were a more complicated issue. Mom had written out the confession as I demanded, detailing everything she and Amanda had done. I kept it in a safe deposit box of my own, not to use against them, but as insurance. Trust had to be rebuilt slowly. In the months after Victor's arrest, my relationship with my family was strained. We'd meet for coffee occasionally, awkward conversations where we danced around the elephant in the room. Amanda had gotten therapy and seemed genuinely remorseful. Mom was trying, in her way, though she still made excuses sometimes about being scared and trying to protect us. The real breakthrough came when I showed them the letters. The letters my father had written to me for birthdays I never celebrated with him. I'd been reading them slowly, one every few weeks, not ready to consume them all at once. They were full of advice, jokes, expressions of love. They showed me who my father really was, not the abstract figure from my childhood memories, but a real person who loved his family and tried to do right by them. In the letter meant for my 25th birthday, he'd written something that stuck with me. Lily Bear, I hope you still let people call you that. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I'm sorry I won't be there to see you grow up, to meet your partners, to embarrass you at your wedding, to be the kind of father you deserve. But I want you to know that every decision I made was about protecting you and your sister, not just keeping you safe, but giving you the freedom to be whoever you want to be. Money isn't everything, but it's something. It's choices, it's opportunities, it's the ability to stand up for what's right without fear. Use it well. Use it to make the world a little bit better than you found it. And remember, doing the right thing is often hard, but it's always worth it. I love you more than you'll ever know. Dad. I read that letter to Mom and Amanda over dinner one night. By the end, we were all crying. He really did love us, Amanda said quietly. Even knowing what it might cost him, he still tried to do the right thing. And we betrayed that, Mom added, her voice breaking. We took the easy path, the safe path. We became exactly what he fought against. But you can change, I said. You can start making better choices. It's not too late. And slowly, painfully, we started rebuilding, not back to what we'd been. That family was gone, destroyed by lies and betrayal, but building something new, something based on honesty, even when it was uncomfortable, something that might someday look like trust. Amanda started volunteering at a financial literacy nonprofit, teaching low-income families how to manage money and protect themselves from predatory practices. Mom sold her big house and moved into something smaller, donating the difference to charity. Were these actions enough to make up for what they'd done? Probably not, but they were trying, and that had to count for something. As for me, I quit freelancing and started a foundation in my father's name, the Whitfield Institute for Financial Justice, dedicated to exposing corruption, supporting whistleblowers, and helping families affected by white-collar crime. It felt right, using Dad's money to continue his fight. I hired Gabriel Reeves as a consultant. He'd made it his mission to help me understand the full scope of my father's work, to learn everything I could about the financial systems he navigated. Your father was brilliant and ruthless when he needed to be, but he never forgot who he was doing it for: his family, his principles, the people who couldn't protect themselves. You remind me of him. I wasn't sure if that was a compliment or a warning. Probably both. 6 months after Victor's arrest, I was going through the last box of documents from the safe deposit box when I found one more letter. This one was addressed to me, but the date was different. It had been written the day before my father died. My hands shook when I opened it. My dearest Lily, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and you found what I left for you. I'm writing this at 2 a.m., unable to sleep, knowing what I'm about to do tomorrow. I'm going to meet with the FBI, and I'm going to tell them everything about Victor and his criminal enterprise. I know it's dangerous. I know Victor won't let me testify, but I can't live with myself if I don't try. Your mother thinks I'm being stupid, risking everything for principles. She doesn't understand why I can't just look the other way, why I can't let other people's crimes be their problem instead of mine. Maybe she's right. Maybe I am being stupid. But Lily, I need you to understand something, even if you're too young right now to grasp it. When you were born, I held you in my arms for the first time, and I made you a promise. I promised I would always protect you, that I would give you a better world than the one I grew up in. And for 5 years, I've broken that promise every single day. Because every dollar I've managed for Victor, every transaction I've processed, every account I've opened, it's all been dirty money. Money from drugs, from weapons, from human trafficking. Money that's causing suffering somewhere in the world. I've been telling myself it's okay because I'm providing for my family, because the money is good and you girls have everything you need. But that's not protection. That's cowardice. Real protection means standing up to people like Victor, even when it's dangerous. Real protection means fighting for a world where my daughters don't have to grow up around corruption and crime. So I'm going to fight, and there's a very good chance I'm going to lose. Victor is powerful, connected, ruthless, but even if I lose, I'm going to make sure I take him down with me. That's what the safe deposit box is for. Insurance. Evidence that will destroy him. Evidence that can't be lost or hidden. Evidence that will be there for you when you're old enough to use it. I'm not going to lie to you, Lily Bear. This money I'm leaving you, it's not clean. Some of it came from managing legitimate investments, but a lot of it came from the dirty work I did for Victor. I made this money by compromising my principles, and that's something I'll have to live with, or not live with, as the case may be. But you can make it clean. You can take this dirty money and use it for something good. You can turn what I did wrong into something right. That's my real gift to you. Not the money itself, but the opportunity to be better than I was, to have the courage I lacked for too long. Your sister Amanda, she's like your mother, practical, cautious, willing to compromise to stay safe. She'll probably try to hide this money, to protect it, and protect you by keeping you ignorant. Don't let her. Don't let fear make you small. You're my daughter, and I know you have fight in you. I've seen it since you were a baby, the way you refuse to give up on things, the way you question everything. That strength is going to serve you well. If I die, when I die, because let's be honest, Victor's not going to let me walk away from this. Your mother is going to tell you I abandoned you. She's going to say I chose my principles over my family. And maybe that's true. Maybe I am choosing to die rather than continue living as Victor's accomplice. But I need you to know, I'm not leaving you. I'm fighting for you, for your future, for the right to look at myself in the mirror and see someone worthy of being your father. There's a recording made a few months ago when I got Victor drunk and angry enough to confess to various crimes. I've hidden it with my accountant, Bernard Lewis, in a safe. The access code is your birthday backwards. If anything happens to me, that recording is your nuclear option. Use it wisely. I'm scared, Lily. I'm terrified of dying, of leaving you and your sister and your mother. I'm terrified of what Victor might do to my family after I'm gone. but I'm more terrified of who I'll become if I don't fight now. I'm more terrified of you growing up and someday learning what your father really was, a coward who valued money over morals. So I'm going to fight. And if I lose, I need you to finish what I started. Not for revenge. Revenge is just another form of cowardice, but for justice. For all the people who've been hurt by men like Victor. For all the families torn apart by the crimes he's facilitated. You're 5 years old right now, and you probably won't understand this letter when you first read it at 25. But someday, you'll face a choice, to fight or to hide, to stand up or to look away. When that moment comes, remember that your father fought. Remember that doing the right thing is worth the cost. Remember that you come from a long line of stubborn people who won't back down. I love you more than I can express in words. I love your sister. I even love your mother, despite our differences about how to handle all this. I love you enough to die so that you can live in a cleaner world. That has to be enough. Be brave, Lily Bear. Be better than me. And never, ever let anyone tell you that principles are worth less than survival. All my love, always and forever, Dad. P.S. I hid a photo of us in this box too, the one for your 4th birthday, where you're covered in chocolate cake and laughing. Look at that photo whenever you doubt yourself. Look at how happy you are, how free. That's the life I'm fighting for, that joy, that innocence. Hold on to it. I finished reading and found the photo at the bottom of the envelope. There we were, me at 4, chocolate cake smeared across my face, and my father beside me, laughing, his arm around my small shoulders. I couldn't remember that day, couldn't remember that laugh, that joy. But looking at the photo, I could see the love. It was there in the way he looked at me, the way his whole face lit up with pride and happiness. My father had died for his principles. He'd died fighting for a better world, and he'd left me the tools to finish what he started. The Whitfield Institute wasn't just about honoring his memory. It was about completing his mission. Every dollar I spent exposing corruption, every family I helped, every whistleblower I protected, it was all part of finishing the fight he'd started 23 years ago. I pressed the photo to my chest and cried not from sadness, but from gratitude, because my father had given me more than money. He'd given me purpose. He'd given me courage. He'd given me the example of what it meant to stand up for what's right, no matter the cost. And I was going to make him proud. 1 year after I found that champagne bottle in Amanda's wedding photo, I stood in front of a crowd of 200 people at the grand opening of the Whitfield Institute's new office building. It was in downtown San Francisco, modern and gleaming, with my father's name engraved above the entrance. Mom and Amanda were in the front row. Nicole stood beside me on the stage. Gabriel was there with his wife. Michael Chen from the bank had come, as had several of my father's old colleagues who'd spent years wishing they'd spoken up about Victor sooner. But the people I was most proud of to see were the others, the families we'd helped, the whistleblowers we'd protected, the young people we'd educated about financial justice. They filled the room, proof that my father's sacrifice hadn't been in vain. I'd prepared a speech, but looking out at all those faces, I decided to speak from the heart instead. A year ago, I thought I knew who I was. I was Lily Monroe, struggling graphic designer, the family disappointment, the daughter of a man who'd abandoned us. I was broke, alone, and convinced I'd spend my whole life just scraping by. Then I noticed something in a wedding photo, numbers on a champagne bottle that seemed random until I looked closer. Those numbers changed everything. They led me to a fortune, yes, but more importantly, they led me to the truth about my father. I pulled up a picture on the screen behind me, that photo of me at 4, covered in chocolate cake, my father's arm around me. Thomas Whitfield wasn't perfect. He made mistakes, worked for the wrong people, compromised his principles for too long. But when it mattered most, when he had to choose between his safety and doing what was right, he chose right. He died fighting to expose corruption, to protect his family, to make the world a little bit better. My mother and sister, they made different choices. I looked at them, saw tears streaming down their faces. They chose safety over truth, comfort over justice. They lied to me, stole from me, betrayed the trust that family is supposed to be built on. Amanda started to stand, probably to leave, but I held up my hand. But they're here today. And they're here because we made another choice, the choice to try again, to build something new from the wreckage of what was broken, to prove that people can change, that mistakes don't have to define us forever. Mom was openly sobbing now, and I saw Amanda reach over to hold her hand. The Whitfield Institute exists because my father believed in second chances. He believed that dirty money could be cleaned by using it for good, that people who'd done wrong could still choose to do right, that it's never too late to fight for justice. I pulled out the last letter my father had written, the one from the night before he died. My father wrote, "Be brave, Lily Bear. Be better than me, and never let anyone tell you that principles are worth less than survival." For 23 years, I didn't know he'd written this. I thought he'd abandoned me because I wasn't worth staying for. But the truth is, he loved me enough to die so I could live in a better world. So this institute isn't just about fighting corruption, or helping whistleblowers, or educating people about financial justice, though it's all of those things. It's about finishing what my father started. It's about proving that one person standing up for what's right can make a difference. It's about transforming pain into purpose. I looked directly at the camera that was recording this event, knowing it would be posted online, that hundreds of thousands of people might watch it. If you're watching this and you're facing a choice, to speak up or stay silent, to fight or to hide, to do what's easy or what's right, I want you to remember something. My father died for his choice to fight. But because he fought, because he left evidence, because he refused to let corruption win, we were able to take down an entire criminal enterprise. We were able to recover hundreds of millions of dollars. We were able to prevent future crimes. One person, one choice. That's all it takes to change everything. So whatever you're facing, whatever secrets you're keeping, whatever corruption you're witnessing, you have a choice. You can look away, or you can fight. And if you choose to fight, we'll be here to support you. That's what the Whitfield Institute is for. That's what my father died for. That's what I'm living for. The applause was deafening. People stood, cheering, some of them crying. I saw Nicole wiping her eyes, saw Gabriel nodding with approval, saw strangers who'd been helped by our work standing to celebrate. But what I'll remember most was looking down at my mother and sister. Mom was standing, clapping, pride and remorse mixing on her face. And Amanda was looking at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Not her little sister, not the family disappointment, but someone strong, someone brave, someone worthy. After the ceremony, we all went out to dinner. Me, Mom, Amanda, Nicole, and a few close friends. It was the first truly comfortable meal we'd had as a family in over a year. We talked and laughed and remembered good times, and for a few hours, it felt like we might actually be okay someday. As we were leaving the restaurant, Amanda pulled me aside. She said, "I saw something today. When you were up there speaking, channeling Dad, being brave and fierce and absolutely fearless, I saw who you really are. And Lily, I am so sorry for every time I made you feel small, every time I benefited from your money while you struggled, every time I chose comfort over honesty. I know. and I forgive you, not because what you did was okay, but because holding on to anger was poisoning me. I'd rather build something new than stay stuck in what was broken." She hugged me then, really hugged me, and whispered, "Thank you for being better than we deserved, for finishing what Dad started, for showing us what real strength looks like." That night, alone in my apartment, I pulled out the photo of me and my father one more time. I studied his face, tried to memorize every detail, and I made him a promise. "I'll keep fighting, Dad. I'll keep standing up for what's right. I'll keep making sure your death meant something. And someday, when I have kids of my own, I'll tell them about their grandfather who died a hero, who loved them before they were born, who left them a legacy bigger than money." I placed the photo on my desk where I'd see it every day, next to my father's final letter and the champagne bottle label from Amanda's wedding, the clue that had started everything. A tiny detail in a wedding photo had changed my life. It had led me to a fortune, yes, but more importantly, it had led me to the truth about my father. My father had left me breadcrumbs to follow, and I'd followed them to the truth. Now it was my turn to leave breadcrumbs for others, to show them that fighting for justice is worth it, that standing up to corruption matters, that one person really can make a difference. The Whitfield Institute was just the beginning. There was so much more work to do, so many more people to help, so many wrongs to right. But for the first time in my life, I felt ready for the challenge. Because I wasn't just Lily Monroe anymore. I was Thomas Whitfield's daughter. I was a fighter. I was someone who turned pain into purpose and loss into legacy. And I was just getting started. So that's my story. From finding a clue in a wedding photo, to discovering an $11 million fortune, to taking down the man who murdered my father. It's been one hell of a journey, and it's not over yet. I want to know, what would you have done in my position? Would you have forgiven your family? Would you have given the evidence to the FBI? Or would you have confronted the killer yourself? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story moved you, if it made you think about truth and justice and family, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future stories. Most importantly, remember this. You have more power than you think. Your choices matter. Your voice matters. And if you're sitting on evidence of wrongdoing, if you know something that could help others, speak up. Reach out. Find help, because silence protects the guilty, but truth sets everyone free. Thanks for listening to my story. Stay strong, stay brave, and never stop fighting for what's right.